A slight issue with anime following the same tropes as we've seen countless times before is that even though the show itself isn't inherently bad, one may still view it in a far poorer light, since we've seen that formula countless times before. Asuka from Evangelion was a great character, even though I know right now she'd be looked at as a basic tsundere. Rei from Evangelion was a fascinating character, even though right now she'd be regarded as a basic kudere. And Shinji from Evangelion was a riveting okay, fine, who am I kidding? He was always a total pussy, but you get my point. Naruto's shonen journey to become the ninja president was heartening, but at this point, since every second anime season has that carbon copy goal in mind, just kind of feels stale. Which is why, thankfully, Boruto changed it up, and it is one of the greatest series of recent times. Okay, fine, who am I kidding? This is a disaster. I'm currently working on a script comparing the Naruto tuning exams and the Boruto tuning exams, and why Boruto has to fail. Yeah, Boruto's something else. In any case, today, I wanted to take a look at 3 specific pieces of media that are currently going on that accentuates my point in how to correctly do a cliche-focused narrative correctly. And the first is the ongoing, critically acclaimed fairy tale. I'm joking, it's My Hero Academia. What is with me trying to drive away my fan base? What's happening today? Will Deku manage to become the hero Kage? Spoilers? Yes! And here's how the formula was adapted to give this story the power of youth and really make it a breath of fresh air for the entire anime community. My Hero Academia is adapted differently than every shonen anime of its style. Before even stressing the show itself, Bones is doing an amazing job gunning for quality over quantity. It's keeping its adaptations slow with breaks between the seasons, just so the manga could be far enough ahead to keep the anime at peak performance at all times. There are no filler episodes, there is no dead time, except for like the first episode of every single season for whatever reason, and there's only one Mineta. Only one! There aren't spasms of terrible animation because they keep the seasons short and to the point. Most studios that adapt Shonen Jump manga immediately assume that the fan base is kids and therefore have a different perspective in adaptation. They think kids love the characters, so filler episodes wouldn't bother them, right? They think kids love fights, so filler arcs shouldn't bother them, right? And they seem to have their heads so far up their ass that they think kids love fights no matter what. They wouldn't mind if we extended Luffy versus Cracker to be 8 episodes, even though it was a chapter and half of the manga. And while it's fun poking fun at adaptations and how they butcher the source material to the point that One Piece is one of my favorite manga of all time, but not even close to one of my favorite anime, some blame needs to be dealt to the actual mangaka themselves as well. The underlying victory to most major battles and important points in these shonen is due to the power of friendship. That's the message trying to be pushed forward by the vast majority of long-running shonen, and we're kinda sick of it. Don't get me wrong, the friendships of My Hero Academia are amazing too. When Deku rushed in to save Ida from Stain, and then Todoroki put himself at risk to save both of them, that's exactly the type of power of friendship I want to see. It doesn't need to be a godly power that transcends reality, that can't even hope to be obtained within our reality. Power of friendship is exactly what's exhibited in the Stain fight, and it's executed perfectly at that. And once we're on the power of friendship topic, did you notice that the main character is always the one that gets this boost to win? And the underlying message is, since it's his story, he gets the friendship boost, which alternatively implies that the support cast are his friendship power-ups more than their own individual entities. And it's that message that My Hero Academia is really trying to snuff out, giving importance to every character, with each getting their own growth spurts. So while the internal ideology of the cliche shonen brand is friendship that triumphs, Deku wants to become a hero that puts a smile on people's faces. Put that alongside Stain, who is the embodiment of the villain Kickstarter campaign, and My Hero Academia has the ideology of justice, and that's what it's gunning to above even friendship. So even when Deku gets his light plot armor, which granted he does, especially when protecting someone he cares about, his overarching passion booster drive is fighting for justice, for example against muscular rather than pure friendship, while Natsu, Luffy, Ichigo, Naruto is fighting for their friends. Again, not that there's anything inherently wrong with that. A series that pushes that ideological narrative is totally great and fine. We've just seen it 1,000 times. But My Hero Academia can still feel original despite the checkbox tropes it possesses, pushing the justice narrative as opposed to a friendship narrative. And also, this itself inherently changes the protagonist's perspective as well. As a result of that, he automatically can't be an asshole, an aloof moron, an edgy crybaby out there just to fight strong opponents, or as a total reactive protagonist just to save the damsel of distress of the current arc. And again, there's nothing wrong with an edgy asshole moron reacting to strong opponents to get some push. But Deku's admirations for All Might as his focal drive drive makes him more serious of a character, despite having the ability to retain a quirky side as well, with an ideology that constantly is put to the test throughout the narrative with every major opponent, namely Hand Guy, Todoroki, and Stain. Whereas your average shonen fight is more black and white, and Hiro Aka is by no means subtle about this. While most shonen openings are based off friendship and teamwork and love and all that, My Hero Academia pushes a different motif with openings named Peace Sign, and I keep my ideals, so I'm not going to be doing covers on this channel. Don't worry, please don't unsubscribe. But My Hero Academia uses primarily ideology to create its own brand. But this season has another series that takes a very different approach on a checkbox anime that feels original. Megalo Box. Ideologically, Megalo Box is garbage, but luckily it's still one of the best anime of the season and one of the best I've seen for a while, and it doesn't feel like an overdone trope in the slightest, which is why I'd like to talk about it here, because after some slight inspection, even though I loved it, it looks like the most cliche, stereotypical, predictable sports anime of all time. I understand many of you have yet to watch it, even though I recommended it in my seasonal recommendations, and I assume it was because you were either too busy or taking a really long shit ever since watching that video. But any hooter, here's the premise. Kid lives in the slums, has a dream to do anime boxing. You're probably wondering, what's anime boxing? And well, I'll explain. It's basically like regular boxing, except that's not brutal enough, so they become half mech to completely obliterate each other. Anime boxing, fam. Well, this kid manages to find himself a slot in the big tournament, since the #1 player took interest in him, and kid proceeds to kick butt, and I bet you any money he's gonna win most of his fights. Yep, most boring cliche sport anime theme of all time. Now this anime, aside from completing all those points with pizzazz, it taught me a big lesson about tone, because that's all it took to turn this cardboard cutout idea into a rejuvenating storyline, aside from all the awesome fights. Every sports shonen focuses on a protagonist that has drive. Passion is the #1 aspect you see in a shonen as a whole, and sports shonen's on another level entirely. And the protagonist is either physically unfit for the sport or a total badass in the sport, where they, with sweat, tears, and pissing only a little, will become the next Ball Might and slowly hone their quirk, Ball for One, with friends and finding themselves. Joe from Megalo Box inherently isn't all that different, and he had the mad passion required for a sports anime. It's interesting that his goal is playing the champ and having a great time above necessarily getting the trophy and title. And while that's nice to see, the tone is what sets it apart in an entirely different ballpark from other sports anime. Many protagonists start with nothing, but this nothing usually derives from their personal, physical, or emotional ineptitude, acting as #relatable as possible for the viewers. So the inspired viewers, who are also weak or depressed, or not really, but you know what I mean, can also feel that passion and keep picking themselves up again and again as many times as they need to, and this is exactly the opposite inspiration taken from Megalo Box. Joe is a character that is not emotionally traumatized and does not have a physical disadvantage. In fact, he's quite the opposite. He's like Brawl Might. For him, it's even worse though, because it's put out of his control entirely, where he can never realize his dream of fighting an opponent where he can go all out thanks to the cruel reality of not himself, not his own mental issues, but the cruel reality of society. Born in the slums, he's treated as a non-entity and without even citizen status. He has no right to even compete, and the product to all that ensues that he is now fighting underground tournaments where it's all based on the money that he has to make to survive. Where his coach whispers in his earpiece exactly how long he's allowed to keep the fight going, to keep the hype going, until he has to let himself take a few of those decimating blows from anime boxing and purposely lose. It's the most soul-crushing, pride-destroying life anyone can live, being teased by the thing he loves most, even knowing he can never acquire it. The good news is, because of plot power, he manages to get a shot at the big leagues, and he'll take that chance for everything it's worth. Rely on both himself and others for the first time in his life. And even still, it does not take the sports shonen tone shifts. Yes, we developed some of the opponents into genuine characters, and yes, it's predictable AF that, oh man, the bad guy is so good, what what's the good guy gonna do? Oh, he won. Yeah, that's gonna happen. But the angle is different. We don't have our kind-hearted, light-minded, good-seeking protagonists and his goal to claim victory in a way that's honorable and fair. Joe's goal here is to build his name to propel him in the rankings to box against Mr. Insert Russian stereotype here. Spoil, just because I assume most of you have not seen this anime. Instead, I suggest you see this anime. But I swear to God, if they pull a Yuri on Ice with this Russian hunk, I'm gonna... We interrupt these spoilers to vaguely talk about Infinity War without spoilers to get our point across rather unsuccessfully. Okay, so Marvel Infinity War. PewDiePie's complaint about Marvel was the redundancy and repetitive nature of their movies. Yes, now I can put PewDiePie in the thumbnail. In any case, ignore that last thing. Hero fights for good, villain fights for evil. Good guy wins. Everyone lives happily ever after, even though they're all virgins. And then the obligatory sequel comes where a new, more powerful bad guy wants to destroy the world, and his chin looks like a ball sack. Without getting into details, or my slight issues with Thanos altogether, Infinity War's crazy hype comes from breaking the mold of the cliche, despite being that superhero film that's supposed to go along the good guy beats bad guy lines, treating Thanos as a borderline protagonist, for lack of a better term, with an ending the likes of which we've never seen before on the big screen. PewDiePie couldn't have hated it that much. I mean, it is like 6 of his thumbnails. And the same can be said for Deadpool, being the cliche good guy versus bad guy in a relatively boring setting, where barely any actual plot actually developed. But it was freaking amazing, and I love the schnizzle out of it, because an anti-hero isn't a role we know on the big screen, and an R-rated superhero is a paradox by its own right. But that's the crux of the matter. Without dwelling too much and getting into spoilers for those of you who were unfortunate enough not to see the rise of Thanos, it's possible to still have a cliche-seeming show or movie feel original and badass. You just need to add enough memes. That and changing up the perspective, be it, you know, via different ideology, tone, narrative style, with an unprotagonist-like protagonist, but yet, mostly memes. 2018's amazing. Slowly the world is becoming more and more like me. Fucking weird. In the good way, of course, I hope. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, likes are appreciated, cause I'm hungry. Feel free to subscribble if you're interested in future videos analyzing different topics. And according to legend, if you hit the notification bell, YouTube actually sends notifications. What? Yeah, that's pretty crazy, I know. To my Twitter is also in the description, right next to my merch and Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, which it would be awesome if you actually went to and donated money. Huge thanks to the 5 swag coggers, Cindergarten, Axel, Colton, Scott, you, and an anonymous member. The 3 Lord Tweakers, Large, Blobby, Loomson, and Galactic, and the 2 God Usopp rank members, JD Fincher and Ezedric. You don't realize how much I appreciate your help. It's insane. I mean, PewDiePie's latest video was telling you how bad ad revenue is, and Mr. Beast was complaining about it as well. And I mean, I don't mean to, you know, point anything out here, but PewDiePie has 1 or 2 more subscribers than I do. I mean, you could change that if you subscribed, but you know, I don't think I'll be passing him in the near future. I still appreciate every single one of you who took the time to click on this video and listen to my cringy opinions and hilarious jokes. But of course, remember, there's one thing that's more important than anything else, and that is to stay weird, fam.